on the
mixer.
streaming sites. Yeah.
So we're recording, we think? So we can keep talking for a minute, like even though we're not, no one,
If the stream doesn't work.
What's that? Stream's back up. So we're having some glitches tonight, which, yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So that if we're not in Stream Deck?
Well, we don't know.
Oh,
you could be watching us live. You could be watching us in the future anyways, in which case we'd love to know how the weather turns out this winter. So make sure you tell us in the comments. But so .NET Core, a long time coming, because I think we talked about how 3 brings Blazor, but at the same time, there's another big thing we haven't mentioned at all. We've talked a lot about it on the show, is WinForms and WPF support coming to Windows apps in .NET Core 3, including, I'm pretty sure this is shipping the single file executable. Pretty sure that's right. Where basically, let's say you build an application and you even write you have your own projects in the solution that might be dependencies.
Okay.
Pretty sure that you can say .NET Publish and get a single self-contained exe.
Wow.
So
that's cool. I mean, I think everyone originally, thought, those things are going to be dead. They're never going to be in .NET Core. Those were the things you were hearing in the beginning. And maybe I don't know, but maybe the teams thought that was going to be the case too. I don't know. But here we are.
Yep.
And there's support for that stuff. So
path forward for WPF and WinForms developers, which is nice, because I think if you were on those platforms and you might be a little afraid that the innovation that happens in .NET Core won't ever come back to framework.
Right.
Well, now you can say, well, hold on, I have a bridge.
Yeah.
Get my app over to Core and I can keep up with the innovation.
Sure.
I think in the future we're going to care about standards like future standards of TLS. We're going to care about improvements to the HTTP client factory, and you're going to get those in .NET Core. We're not going to see those in framework. So it's a big deal. .NET Conf next month, it's scheduled to be officially released, and that's going to be an awesome conference.
And what are the dates for .NET Conf? Do you recall?
23rd.
We should have just known, right?
Yeah, right. I just remembered it.
But that's okay.
It's good for us to be prepared.
23rd through the 25th. That's right.
.NET Conf. So for those people that don't know what .NET Conf is, we talked about it last week, but you want to give them a...
Yeah, I mean, .NET Conf is a virtual conference run completely online. The first day, there are often keynote style talks and sessions that everyone sees.
There it is.
But one of the special things about .NET Conf that started last year were the community talks by developers all over the world. This was an event that did always ask for community contributions, and you did have people calling in on Skype or on any kind of messaging service so that they could present live. And now what you have is this is happening. I think this year it's going to be 48 hours or 36 hours. Last year was 24 hours straight of talks from every time zone around the world. I think that might be lengthened this year. It might be even more than that, but it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact time. I know it's at least going to be 24 hours again. But.
Oh, it's at least 2 days, because I think on the dates on the webpage, it says 23rd to 25th. So right off the bat.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the talks around the world. So there's sessions on day 1, keynote from Microsoft Studios, sessions from Microsoft Studios, sessions on day 2, and then the community sessions in local time zones around the world on day 3 is, actually beginning day 2 at 5 p.m. Pacific, going until 5 p.m. the next day. So that is the 24 hours of community sessions in your local time zones.
So if you can't sleep,
if you're
you can watch it all.
You can watch everything. And the great thing is you had people in their local languages in in Eastern Europe, on the African continent, on the Asian continents.
They had people, everything.
If I remember correctly, every continent, but Jeff Fritz likes to make the joke that every continent but Antarctica was represented.
Right.
And this year he was determined to get Antarctica. I have no idea what he has up his sleeve. Don't know, but wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something if he knows something?
Tune in.
Yeah, if he's thought of something that because that sounds pretty funny, but that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the other thing that has happened is last week we talked and teased a little bit. GitHub teased us all with a live stream announcement that they said, hey, we are going to talk about something tomorrow. And I said, well, what the heck could that be? And they announced addition to their GitHub Actions product. I don't know that much about it. I did see a little bit of the live stream, but it's GitHub Actions now with continuous integration, continuous delivery.
Yep. So they announced essentially 4 types of actions. Okay. So some of the things you might do to do a simple pipeline out of GitHub into, for example, Azure. So having that ability to authenticate against an Azure subscription. So you think about what we do in DevOps pipelines, we basically say, hey, I need to, the landing point of this pipeline is to go into an Azure subscription, right? So I've got to have some kind of a connection and authentication to be able to push code into there or to push releases into there. So that's one of the actions. There's actions that go to your app services. So creating web apps, kind of like we've been doing with that last show when we deployed our web app out there. Container actions, so actually taking code, dropping a container, or dropping the definition for an image, pushing that out to Docker Hub or to Azure Container Registry. So having the capability to push that one of those 2 places. And then also Kubernetes actions, so being able to deploy to the Kubernetes cluster. Yeah, but those are the fundamental things, right? If you think about, hey, the things that we've shown here, you talk to customers, those are the core set of features that they might want to do out of GitHub.
Right, and then GitHub Actions, it has an extensibility API. I believe you just code at it with JavaScript, right? The reason why I bring that up is during their live stream, one of the compelling parts for me is watch the part kind of in the middle where they have the maintainers of Yarn come and talk about an action they wrote, right? Where they basically say, hey, we're a huge project, we're constantly getting bug reports, and sometimes we're fortunate enough that when somebody gives us a bug report, they also provide the code to reproduce it. Well, now they've automated it with a GitHub action that detects, it says, okay, somebody's included code in the issue. Let's try running it. Right. And if it produces the bug as stated, they can immediately tag the issue as reproduced so that it saves them a step. Nice. And they can already move it into the bucket of, yep, we know this is real.
So you guys don't do that work?
It's crazy, right? That's fantastic.
Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, that's impressive. Like that's good. That's a fast way to iterate, right? And validate things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think this whole thing is pretty cool. So, well, in the last show we were using Azure DevOps, right? And we talk a lot about Azure DevOps, but we know there's tons of projects that are over there in GitHub. I mean, GitHub's a great platform, right? Especially for open source stuff.
Right.
So, again, I think we talked about this last week. The ability for a person to start a project, right? A person, meaning like a developer has an idea, or a small company wants to form and have an idea and go get that thing out there, whatever that is, that piece of software. And it's just this is just another example of like tooling and stuff that's out there for people to just build their software easier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is GitHub is also the home to important projects, and we can go with the low-hanging fruit. It's the home of .NET Core is GitHub. Yeah. ASP.NET Core's home is GitHub. More and more Microsoft stuff is GitHub. But us Microsoft developers, we would have been very comfortable just say, hey, we've got this awesome tool, Azure DevOps, and Azure DevOps is still available to you. But let's not forget, this is also the home of important languages like Ruby, Python. Their home is GitHub.
Oh yeah.
So it makes sense that GitHub would say, let's add these abilities for these folks to release, to be able to do more right here, staying in this one place.
Right.
You get to do it all here. Yeah. So wow, what a big move, right? These platforms aren't just they're not just places to store code anymore. They become the hub for it. With wikis and issues.
The hub?
They do. Well, GitHub. But
yeah, was that a joke you were making?
No, it wasn't really a joke, but they become the hub for the project.
Did you think you were doing that on purpose?
No, yeah.
But I mean, between just code and pull requests, they become the meeting place.
Right.
Here's where you learn about the project. Here's where you join the project. You report issues. You talk about it.
Right. Well, that's, anyone that is not on the DevOps bandwagon, and when I say DevOps, I don't mean Azure DevOps, although
small d,
like
right?
that. Small d DevOps. If you're not on that bandwagon, it's time to get on the bandwagon, because this, what you just talked about, it's all DevOps, right? Yeah. It's creating that continuous loop, right? Reporting the issues, change the code, deploy the code, monitor. Now, I don't know what the monitoring story is there on that case in particular, but the point is, every place is trying to make things easy to do dev. That is the way to write software now.
Right. And the monitoring comes down to wherever it is you're hosting, right?
Well, yeah.
And then you got to make some kind of connection back to the issues, but
yeah. And I'll bet there's a way to do that. Not too hard. Probably can do like some kind of webhook.
Sure.
Going from like your app insights, or something. I mean, I'm making this up as I go, but like, and sort of feed, when something happens and maybe it can generate a GitHub issue or something like that,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Actually, Azure Monitor would do that.
Azure Monitor would do that. Right. That makes sense.
You have some kind of a value you're monitoring for that would talk out to a webhook. So
see, I just make stuff up.
Yeah.
Rich
and then
Rich
I proof
tells the real story, which is cool.
So you could take, I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily related to GitHub, but if you had website failures, each one could be logged, reported, and captured by a system that's monitoring a webhook, right?
Yep.
Pretty amazing stuff, which is what we should be doing instead of, because I mean, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I've been on many a project and still see them to this day where an issue is reported and now you're scrambling. Okay, well, we got to.
Sorry, did you say an issue? I just want to clarify.
Somebody
did you say an issue was reported or recorded?
Reported. Somebody just calls up.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a customer.
Oh, okay.
It could be someone in your organization and just says, I'm having this problem with the website. And then you wait around as a development and engineering team for it to happen again so that you hope you can catch it.
Right.
Or maybe, can you show me how to do it?
Right.
And it sure would be a lot nicer if you just already had that. You already have what was the user doing, what page are they on, what was the exception, if there was one, hopefully. Right.
Yeah. So. Well, a lot of insights will collect a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Especially, and you could also tie that in with your, with your QA testers and stuff like that. So where they do that, I forget the exact name of the feature, but there's some way that they can do like they can record their test plans and you play it. You can record their testing scenario,
right?
And then I can, as a developer, I can sort of play it back with their variables. Like I forget what that's called. It's I don't know.
It's not part of Azure Test Plans has testing.
Yeah, but I thought it's
right.
App Insights. I thought somewhere there's another layer of it, but it's on.
So there's the feature you're talking about in App Insights where you can basically download what happened in production when you hit an error and run that locally. So running that through your Visual Studio
that's
capturing all the values. But
so. Yeah, and if you want to know the API changes that were made, it's in the .NET Core repo. So anything that changed in recently, here's an example of a team using it as a communication tool, right? GitHub is saying, hey, just take a look at what we changed. So GitHub isn't just a place to store code. It's also like announcements happen here.
Yeah.
It's great. Like everything happens in a central place now. It makes you wonder. Sometimes it makes you wonder, how did we get along before?
Right.
Did we just wait for .NET Framework
Things moved slower.
They did, I guess. That's true. Right?
So we got along. Yeah. And it's a blessing and a curse. It's really hard to keep up now. We've talked about that too, right? Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with stuff.
And we would do the same things, but we would do them in different places, right? Where we had like Azure stores all of their samples up there. So you can go up there to the Azure repo to the Azure account and look at the Azure samples repo. And that's content that kind of matches to what you see in the docs, right? As they run through a sample that links out to there. Whereas in the past, we would restore it in some other kind of, whether it was Codeplex or something like that.
Well, I remember way back when I was doing a lot of, when I was doing a lot of WCF, there was a WCF samples installer.
Mm-hmm.
It was an install shield thing. Well, I don't know if it was install shield, but I mean, it might have been, but it was just like your regular old setup program. And you ran it and it said, well, where do you want this to install the samples? Next, finish.
Yeah.
And then they installed on your machine. Yep. And you wouldn't do that now. Now you would go to the repo, clone them down, and you'd want them to be F5able. In fact, what's great about it is and this has happened a couple times where, I was attending a cloud. It was here actually. I was attending a cloud a talk on basically getting started with cloud and containers, and we sitting in a conference room here at the MTC, were struggling with a step. There was nothing wrong with the documentation. It's just that the way it could be read one way, and all of us in the room read it that way.
Yeah.
So sitting there in the room, I opened a GitHub issue, suggested a clarification to the docs, and submitted a PR. Just sitting right there in the training class, right? Saying, maybe we could make this a little clearer.
Should we slow clap?
No, but I just thought it was
No,
cool.
no, it is
right?
cool. I'm making
It's
fun.
cool. All just sitting right there.
It just boom.
So that way
it's done.
that way maybe the next group doesn't
It's
deal with
the
it.
feedback
Yeah.
loop,
Yeah.
right? They've shortened the loop, and it's great.
Yep.
It's great, and and you had an impact. I mean, I'm making fun of it.
I
but
mean, I don't know if I had an impact or not, but I thought
I've reported bugs. I've reported stuff on docs nowadays.
Yeah.
I find I find typos in there, so I just send them quick, and they fix
Hey.
it. It's great.
and then believe me, there is a lot to do that even you might think, oh, this is a petty contribution, but even just fixing typos, clarifying language, fixing grammar is welcomed.
Oh yeah,
because there's so much to do when it comes to documentation.
Yeah.
If you've got a great sample, they'll look at it, but don't be afraid to just say, hey, look, there's a spelling error here. I'm going to fix it, right?
Yep.
Another great thing to do, which I've done before, is run through this. Even though you see the sample and the walkthrough, do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I found a bug in a Node CLI a while ago, and it wasn't so much a bug as just the documentation hadn't been updated to the new APIs.
Sure.
Okay.
So if you brought the code, if you followed through the walkthrough, you got to a point where it stopped working. And I was
It used to work.
It
right?
probably
Yeah,
it must have worked.
Right.
And then I scratched my head and I realized, oh, they changed the name of that API.
Right.
Sent a pull request, and said, hey,
They
now
gotta
I
be
can
happy
get through the
about that.
sample.
Yeah, they got to be thrilled about that,
Yeah.
right?
I mean,
crowdsource.
You change one
Yeah.
thing in this ecosystem, how many pages do you have to go update now?
That's the thing. At the pace they move, the fact that the docs are updated, it's impressive.
So one thing that we've been working a lot here on building a website. We're beginning the work on the Dev Talk Show website, and we've been using Azure DevOps. In the last show we were using Azure Repos to host the website, and it happens to be a .NET Core 2.2 MVC app.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the more traditional ASP.NET with a server side, and that's a great way to build websites, right? You can use C# in the back end, and you can use Razor to build your views. You're still gonna want to know a little bit of the HTML, CSS, JavaScript side, so that your views that go down to the client work exactly as you want. But one of the things, like one of the cool kids are always doing cool new stuff, right? And remember back in the beginning, did you ever have a GeoCities site? And what did we use when we were coding the GeoCities? HTML, CSS, and maybe we might have done a little job. Maybe not GeoCities. It might have been a little later.
JavaScript.
We might have used JavaScript too.
We had HTML. I don't know if I had CSS. I had inline.
Well, we probably used the blink tag.
Well, yeah,
right.
but
And the marquee
we had
tag.
style.
Yeah.
We had inline. What did you say? You wrote.
Sure,
color
inline
equals,
styles
color
just right
equals,
in the
like there wasn't CSS.
But those were just static sites, right? And then then the programmers took over and said, no, we're going to make websites real programming. So you needed this whole back end and a server. But do you really need that every time?
No.
Right. So this isn't new, but there is a method that's been around for a while of saying, what if your website's just a bunch of pages? What if it's back to just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and perhaps supporting images again? Do you have to put that on a server? Like an IIS server or an Nginx server?
Of course you do.
Well, of course you did, right?
Right.
But what we're gonna talk about is that you don't have to, right? You can do even lighter weight website hosting. We're going to use Azure Storage, right?
Yeah. So, leading into that's what we're gonna attempt to do. We're gonna get this thing going today. I think the important part of this is something that Rich told me. Okay, I had the good fortune of being at the MTC here for a workshop with Rich. Right, we were talking about my organization moving to Azure and stuff like that. And one of the things that comes up a lot is money, costs, and stuff like that. And Rich talked a lot about right sizing. Is that the right phrase? Right sizing, right? So spend money on Azure. I think they like when we do that, right? Sure. But don't waste money on Azure and stuff like that. And so what I'm trying to instill in developers out there and in my organization is when you're moving to Azure, think about your application and how can I do it differently to take advantage of the features of Azure, whether it be breaking up a monolith or taking what was in a SQL Server database and saying maybe I have another option for it, right?
Okay.
Right.
I think this is another example of that. So, and this is timely because this week at work we have this site and it's in Azure and we were getting ready to update some stuff and move it around. And I said, this is a static site.
Okay.
It actually serves a purpose. This is a real thing at work. We have this static site, and I said, why are we paying? I mean, I like paying. We're
using like web apps.
Yeah,
Azure Web Apps.
yeah.
So
It's hosted
in a way, Azure Web Apps, and maybe you were using Windows Azure Web Apps.
We were.
So it was like you had IIS as a service.
Yep.
But
we sure
IIS just for a static.
and it was
website.
really easy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Oh,
it was
sure.
easy. I didn't have to manage anything. But we're still paying an app service plan and stuff like that
Okay.
for certainly not one of our most important assets in our organization. It's a static site. It just some HTML and stuff like that.
Right.
So we want to put it in Azure, and we want to have it be easy, but we want to have it be cost effective, right? And so developers, when you're moving things to Azure, that's the big part of the story to me is rethink your design, rethink your application. What's the right way to do this? Because we have opportunities that we didn't have before, right? So in our traditional web hosting model, we have a data center. It didn't matter if that was a static site or an ASP.NET site. It was throw it up on the web server.
It's going to get put on a server.
It's getting put on a server.
And that server's here.
We didn't have to think about it because we just used whatever was, simple. So we've got so many options now.
Right.
And I can't wait to dig into more of this kind of concept.
Right.
When it comes to certainly to storage options.
Right.
I think there's a lot of fun to be had with rethinking applications and of course breaking things up.
So even what we're going to talk about and show tonight is the tip of the iceberg in rethinking your web application.
But it's an example of that, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
All right. So what are we doing?
Yeah. So you have a site that we were going to play around with. I guess
do.
It's just a simple website that Chris happened to have developed. We were talking about like, hey, let's try this on the show. Right. And I said, well, maybe we should just make like a web page. And Chris says, oh, I've got an old project. We can use that as an example. So why not, right?
Right. So switch over to you.
Yeah. Do we want to show the simple thing? I mean, you've got it.
This is public. This is out there.
And it's in GitHub. We were just talking about
it was in GitHub, and I participated in the Space Apps competition last year, and I was playing around with some ideas for one of their starter issues, or their starter ideas. They give you a bunch of ideas, and as teams, you work together and try to figure out, hey, what can we do? And so this was called, I called it Firestarter, which was kind of ironic. It was about how could you help authorities know about fires in progress. And so, as you can see, I changed the name of it to like Firespotter there. But
Firestarter doesn't sound good at all.
That wasn't really what I was looking for.
No.
So in any case,
it's a web page.
It's just a web. The thing about it, the reason it met our requirements for tonight is that there is no server-side code here.
Right.
This is an index.html that happens to be using location services. It's taking readings from my location. I haven't moved, so the latitude and longitude is staying the same. But and that was really the reason why I have those last 5 readings there, is because I wasn't convinced that I was actually taking a reading every second.
Right.
So I said, how am I going to convince myself this is really working?
But there's JavaScript on this page.
Yeah,
right?
there's
and
JavaScript, there's
on this
CSS.
page. So this is a working,
yeah.
We talk about static website. An important thing is it's not static.
No, it just means there's files, unchanging files. Whereas in the server-side frameworks, the traditional server-side frameworks, whether it's web forms, MVC, even Razor pages, there is a step where you make the request and the web server says, hold on, I'm putting together the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for you.
Rendering it for you.
Yeah. We're dropping stuff into the Razor view.
Yes.
Or maybe in web forms, we're rendering those controls, or in MVC.
We're building up the HTML before it goes out.
Right. There you go. And in a static site, it's like, I don't care. Here you go.
But this could be an Angular site. This could be anything, right?
It could have been.
It could be all sorts of stuff.
But it is super simple because there's just the one HTML,
right? And
then there's some other assets. So
we want to host this.
Yeah.
Right. So the traditional way we do this, and we could switch, I guess, if you want to switch to me. The traditional way we would do this is.
Hang on.
Yep. This is where Rich does all the magic and stuff like that. Like
how I can have a computer and it shows my screen and
I do like clap. And there it is. See, that's the clapper for the switching screens, right? So what would I normally do? I'd come in and go to app services, and I'd create a new app service and pay for a plan and stuff like that. We talked about that before. But I just did this at work, and so I didn't really practice this, but I did it this week. So hopefully I remember how to do it. So what I want to do is create a storage account. Okay, and to do that, we simply go in and add storage account. And this doesn't take long, so we're going to go for it here. This is on my personal subscription, no big deal. The resource group is going to be called, what is the resource group going to be called? Naming is always the hard part. Now I'm like, duh. Let's call it the Dev Talk Static. Oh, no, I'm doing it. I always do this wrong. I always want to do a new one and type in this box. Do you do that? I make this mistake all the time.
Instead of selecting,
yeah, you always got to go to create new.
Yeah, I got
it. Because it takes text, and so I'm just calling it Dev Talk Static. It'll be our little thing. Okay, so the storage account name. So storage account names. This is one of the examples of not my favorite part of Azure. So some resources when you name have to be global unique.
Okay.
Right? And storage account names, I believe they need to be global unique, but they don't allow any special characters or even uppercase.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's kind of hard to make like a cool name in here. Because normally even I would do like the dev, right? In a minute it's telling me like I can't put case sensitive in it, you know.
No.
So I don't know why it's like that. There must be some reason, but let's just call it Dev Talk Static. And I would normally do like dash, and I would say storage, and I would say dash prod or something like that. But you can't do that in here. So we'll just call it Dev Talk Static Storage.
Can you do underscore?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't
No,
think.
I got
Let's
it.
try. No, I hope
it.
maybe it just doesn't
Okay.
like it. Oh, and it's limited to 24 characters. Now we're trying to build like nice names for things at work. We have a pattern for this, and so we kind of hit a wall on this. So I don't want to air all my gripes.
All it takes is somebody like me to say like, haha, I'm gonna take some of the names.
Right. Yeah, that's what worries me, right? So anyway, this name is available, so we're fine, right? And I'll leave it in the West, which is fine. And I'm going to leave the defaults in there, which is storage v2. Actually, you have to use storage v2. You can't go back to any of the earlier versions, as far as I understand, for this feature.
So are these revisions of Azure storage over time, and even from the beginning of Azure?
I believe they are. So, like, I don't know if Rich knows or not, but storage v2 is like the current standard for storage, I believe. And I've seen certain articles where this is the newest version of it.
Yeah.
And V1 is around because there might still be some apps out there that are on V1.
I guess.
I
don't recall.
Legacy or classic type storage.
And that commitment to backward compatibility.
Right. So, and of course you can do other things on here. You can put tags on like a good resource. You should always have tags on them and stuff like that. We're just going to create it for now.
Okay.
And I think I'm doing this right. Now, hopefully this doesn't take too long. Validation passed. So, ship it.
Yeah.
Right? Because validation passed. So, it must be good. So, of course, up in my top side here, we're not seeing I got to turn that mouse thing on again. I guess I have to do that every time. So, I'm going to go to my Ndi settings here, right? Isn't that where I do that?
Yes.
Capture settings.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Mouse pointer, yeah.
And now we can see his mouse.
I wish that would stay by
That's
default. But anyway, you can see the little things spinning up here. Not spinning, but you can see my...
And while things are spinning, so just for completeness, yes. So there's V1 and V2.
Yeah.
So V2 is what you should be using for Azure storage. V1 is essentially for legacy accounts.
Legacy stuff.
So just to be clear.
Okay, so that was quick, right? Done. And I go to my resource. And, I've got the, different blades to look at here, and you can see the...
so a storage account, the storage account has different types of services in it. It's showing down there, there's blobs, there's files, there's tables, there's queues.
Well, it's showing that there could be.
Okay.
Right? I can choose these services,
right.
Blobs and files and tables and
so right now it's just empty.
It's empty.
Okay.
So if you look over here, they make this pretty easy. This feature right here. You go down here, there it is right there. Static website.
Oh gosh, it's a whole feature.
It's a feature. It's not even like I'm hacking this thing. Like they are promoting it. It's first class.
All right.
Like
because I honestly thought you were going to come in here and start filling up files because these are files. But we've got a feature to do this. Okay,
we got a
great.
feature to do this, right? This is
you make a storage account static website.
So I choose static website, And this is how complicated it is. I say I want to enable it. Okay. Now I have to tell it where we're going to start with, right?
Oh, okay.
Your index document, is your sort of home page, wherever you want it to go by default, right? And then navigation, you could have URLs, you can have links, of course, in your page, but you got to go somewhere. So I should ask you, what is the page? Is it called index?
There's an index.html.
Okay. So index.html.
Yeah.
And if you had an error page, I don't know if you have one on that thing.
We
So
could
I think
add
we
one.
can leave it blank.
Okay.
But we could fill that out, and so any error would automatically go to that
Right.
page.
Interesting.
And when I save it, this is interesting. So I've got Azure Mask running.
Yep. Right.
And so it blocks my endpoints,
Which is cool.
which I guess is cool. But this is the important thing. It says an Azure storage container has been created to host. So I had a storage account. Now I have a storage container to host my website, and it's called $web. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And these are the endpoints. Now, the endpoint is what I'm actually going to use to navigate to my storage, right? Now, the thing doesn't exist yet, right? It's not here.
Yeah. Right. Right now, it's just their files that there happen to be copies of
Right.
up on GitHub.
Now, I will say that there's this web thing, and I've never clicked this button here. I assume it's going to take me in and show that, yeah, there's no blobs found, right? So,
but there's an upload link.
there's an upload link, which I haven't used. Now, in the past, what I've been using,
Okay.
and I haven't opened it, I should have opened it up in advance, is Azure Storage Explorer. This is a
okay,
great
yeah.
tool. Have you ever played with this at all?
I think it's been a little while. So
Okay.
instead of having to use the portal, what do you have here?
Yeah, it's a nice, desktop-y kind of application
Okay.
that I have installed here. And
Well, let us know what you think.
yeah, let's see.
I have to admit, every time I open an app on my phone now, it's, hey, take
Yeah.
a second and tell us, will you rate this in the App
Yeah.
Store?
I haven't even used it yet.
Yeah,
Probably,
right.
But they want you to rate it. So I'm gonna go up in here and look. I got a V. So I'm out of date here, but we're gonna hope that this works fine. Maybe I think it's not gonna be a
it'll
big
work
deal
great.
because I've used the Storage Explorer. I don't know what new features are on here. So let's just close that. So what I want to do here is go in here and I can see my storage accounts. And this is not it. That's another one that I did. So I have to refresh this thing. Hang on. No, this is another static site test that I did the other day. So I think that's not the one I just created, right? That was called, yeah. So I wonder if I need to, let's just double check this. I did put it in my, make sure I put it in the right subscription first.
Yeah.
Because I might have done that wrong. Overview should tell me I have a bunch of subscriptions. Come on. Oh, I have to go back to the account, I guess.
Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I was just looking for it. I don't have that
So,
installed.
oh, maybe it's not in this one. Maybe it's in this. Let's just double check. What did I screw up? Oh, you know what? I put it in this other Windows app. Okay, I've got a bunch of subscriptions. It doesn't matter. So here's Dev Talk Static Storage. Okay.
Cool.
I should be paying more attention. And if I go under blob containers, we're going to see that $web.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we were talking about using Zoom It. I should be prepared
Yeah,
to
we
Zoom
should
or
all.
something like that. Let's see. You know what? I have Zoom It, I think.
Do you? Control
Yeah.
F1?
Well, I don't have it turned. I think I have to start it. But I have like a utilities. Let's see. So I got all these. C should be utilities. And Zoom It. And let's just run Zoom It. Did I get it? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, did it start?
The
Okay.
little icon was
So
down.
I think I use Control
one,
1.
right.
Yeah, right. Okay. So now I've noticed sometimes when I do presentations, this stuff gets messed up, maybe because of the resolution. So I hope
We're going to
we'll
find
be able
out.
to see that.
Oh, look at
Yeah,
that.
it's working good.
Very
Okay.
nice. Okay.
So and then I can circle.
So in your storage account, you've got
circling with a mouse is always fun.
yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now and logs is there. Honestly, not even sure what that's. Some logs are going to go in there. right? So,
but web is the one. That's important.
web is what you want to do. So let's get that.
Do you really just drop files into web?
Yeah, you can just drop files into web. Wait till you see how easy
okay.
this is. So first things first, let's prove it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my what am I here? This is the overview.
Is it back in the storage?
Oh, you know,
account?
this is back to there. Yeah, okay, I see. It took me to a weird spot. So I go back to my storage account and go to static website, and I'm going to grab this primary endpoint and copy it up there. And they're trying to help me and make that private, but it's really not a big deal. Doesn't matter. So when I go here, there's no content there, but I'm hitting a URL, right? It's a 404.
Sure.
It's correct. So how do I get your content? What do I got to go to?
Go to GitHub.
Yeah.
/spaceshot. Actually, do you want to?
GitHub.com/spaceshot.
Yep. And then you could /Firestarter on it.
Oh, okay, great.
Just so that we don't have to go find it.
Yeah, /Firestarter.
Okay, and then the green button, clone or download. Let's download it.
Yeah, I'll download it, right?
Yep.
Download zip.
Yep.
And there it is. And I should be able to just drag right out of here these files. Now, some of them aren't going to do anything, I guess, like package.json.
Yeah.
I guess I could just leave that out. So what I really want is
the top 4 should be fine.
These, right?
Yep.
So let's see. Let's do this. And let's do this. Okay. And I should be able to drag these right in here and lickety split. They're going to go up, and I can see them starting to move. Down here, no, what did I do wrong? I thought I dropped it. I saw them doing something. Let's try that again. Maybe I can't drag from a zip file, but I thought I could. I did that here. Oh, maybe you can't drag and drop to this thing. Maybe you can't. You said drag and drop. I don't know. Maybe I can't. I forget. But what I can do is...
There was an upload button, right?
Yeah, there's an upload button. So, no, I drag and drop to this thing because I feel like I've done that a bunch of times. But uploading files, and I'm going to do, the problem is I don't think you can select
Maybe you have to unzip them.
multiple. Yeah, let's unzip them first. Demo's going good, right?
You know, I remember when trying to drag stuff out of zip files didn't work.
At all.
And then it started working for certain things. So I have a feeling there was a little bit of zip files being directly supported in Windows plus applications picking up on that. But I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know what that magic is. It's been a while since I've tried.
I think it works. Let's try it again from this design here.
You don't need the assets folder, by the way. I just looked.
Oh, okay.
So the assets folder was one of the things that website was going to do. It was a proof of concept, just a proof of an idea. Was that perhaps you visited it on your phone, and so it knew where you were standing, and then you wanted to take a picture in the distance of, oh my gosh, I think I see a wildfire. So you would take the picture, it would record where you were standing, and then the idea would be that would get captured in a database that maybe could be used as a very early response system.
It was the zip. Yeah. Or I was doing something silly. I don't know. But our files are up there now.
Yeah, and the assets folder actually only contains a test picture of a wildfire.
Right.
Because it's not in the code now, but I wanted to go out to Azure Cognitive Services, the Vision API, and I wanted to verify that the picture was really a wildfire. So I had a picture of a wildfire and a campfire in there, and I was playing around with, if you put a campfire, would it fool the Vision API into thinking it was a wildfire, or will it smart enough to say, like, no, that's just you're just cooking hot dogs?
And what was it?
So in the Vision API, it still treated it as a fire. It didn't differentiate the two.
Okay.
But I thought that might be interesting if it did.
Did you try the next step, which is to do like a custom vision?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't
just
try
curious.
anything further.
Custom vision's fun, by the way.
Yeah.
I've done some work with that.
You would train it with
you
lots
do.
of different
You train
pictures.
it with pictures of things. Now, That seems like a tough one because depending on how close you are to the fire, it depends on
No.
if it looks like a regular fire or if it knows it's a
I
wildfire.
got the picture uploading stuff done, and then I pivoted because I wanted to get the map stuff done too.
Yeah.
I wanted to show your location on
Yeah,
the
but
map.
this is off topic.
Yeah, it has nothing to do. Well, I was
It's
waiting
okay.
for you to finish.
Oh,
this.
thank
That's
you.
what it
I
was.
thought you were stalling, and it went
okay.
pretty quick. So now if I go back and I refresh this, let's see if I know what I'm talking about here.
And there it is, index.html.
Oh, look, it wants to
And
know
if
my
it wants to
location.
use your location services,
I'll allow it,
which you can
'cause I
say
trust
sure.
you, right?
And there it is.
Right, and so
So the index HTML, which does link out to some CSS and some JavaScript, it's all functioning.
yeah, and I kind of wanted to just show that like it's doing things.
Yeah,
right?
it came out of the
yeah.
out of storage. It didn't come out of.
Came out of storage. It's got the JavaScript. It's got CSS. You can see that we're using the CSS file. This is really nice styling, thanks to Chris's fine.
Well, the styling. I guess we don't have an H1 style. We could put one in.
Oh, we don't have an H1 style.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
I didn't push that back.
Oh, you
up.
didn't push that.
I did the work here.
Yeah,
and then
you
I
never
didn't,
pushed
I didn't put it
well,
back to GitHub.
Point is, it works, right? It's so this is cool. So how easy do you think that was?
So that's a website. It's done. You could do Angular or React or Vue or heck any
Right.
a framework. No framework. This is vanilla JavaScript here.
Yeah. This is.
It's not even npm because I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't know if it's pronounced unpackaged, but the unpkg stuff. So this is what's really interesting. I was determined for this to work on GitHub pages without anything. I really wanted that to happen. So if I take a look really quickly at the code, this may have been new to you because it was new to me at the time. I'm just going to show it to everyone in GitHub.
This is on yours, right?
Yeah.
Where are you? There you go.
These references, okay? So the style sheet is referencing to, look at the site it's referencing, unpkg.com. This is like an npm package and version,
Yeah.
and then where in the npm package to grab the file.
Really?
So
You can do that?
this website dives in and pulls that back out. Same thing for jQuery. Well, actually, I'm sorry. For jQuery, I just pulled the Mind jQuery JS just right off of jQuery because they serve that.
Right. Yeah.
But now the Leaflet is the open source mapping API that I used. Once again, just pulled it. So
that's interesting.
yeah, I learned about this.
Does that sort of act as a CDN of sorts?
It's what they say, a fast global content delivery network for everything on NPM.
Wow.
So it's like NPM without the NPM.
and
And why is that important? I wanted this to work on GitHub Pages. And GitHub Pages, if you just throw static files, you get a website, right?
Yeah.
Well, NPM, not a static, not a stat. Now it's,
Right.
I can't say NPM install. You can't say NPM install,
Right.
right? And it works. It's pretty cool stuff.
That's pretty awesome.
It's pretty amazing. Now, is it fast? I guess if I had if I put tons of packages in there, it would probably slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
But,
let's stay
you
with
know,
that topic of
interesting,
fast
Yeah.
because this is fast.
Yeah. Well, because
Oh.
there's one thing, there's an advantage, and I deliberately left this out. When you were talking earlier, and I think this might be where you're heading, right? Is you were talking earlier about how at our jobs, they might say, hey, look, we got a data center, throw your web files on that IIS server or whatever. So who cares? Whether we were using Apache, it doesn't matter. Whatever web server we're using, just throw your static files on there. But the problem is those files are on a web server in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And somebody in Indonesia is trying to reach the site. So
Mhm.
what's the advantage? Is this where you're going? The advantage of using this service? There are some advantages of using this over even that hosted data center site.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was specifically talking about the speed of that file getting onto my computer. Right. In other words, if I had a web server, something has to render. Has to bring up the page, has to open it. Right. Like Azure storage is fast.
Yeah.
Blob storage is fast.
Yep.
Right. And it's cheap. But I did see some things where they were saying, like, I don't remember, I have a bad head for numbers, but that it's faster
Yeah.
than because there's no server involved.
Right.
Right.
Nothing's-
Well, plus you can make your static website files with this service available over Azure CDN.
You can, and I was going to. I knew you were
Yeah.
saying that. So right here,
That's where I was
talking
headed.
about first class citizen. Right here, Azure CDN. Okay, on the, like, again,
right. You haven't left this.
We're still in the storage account.
Yeah.
They want you to be able to do this stuff. Right. Now, there's a few other things where I was getting into, and by the way, this CDN is also very affordable. Okay. So if I wanted to create a new CDN profile, and I'll call it Dev Talk CDN or something like that. So the pricing tier on this, now again, I'm definitely not much of an expert on pricing tiers. So when I was looking at this thing though, and I was using the standard Akamai because I was told that it loads faster. It's faster in distributing and what do you call it? Propagating. Why isn't pricing loading here? Is that because I'm on
Could be Azure Mask.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe not. It
came
in.
So this says, this is interesting because I could have sworn. Well, I guess it depends on what subscription you're in.
Right. To be clear, it's your pricing.
This is my
for
pricing.
That subscription.
Right. But so in this case, we're looking at 8 cents for a gigabyte. I think I'm reading that right. It's going to cost me 8 cents per gigabyte.
Right.
Of data served. Up to 10 terabytes. So I've got that price locked in for a while. Now, how many gigabytes do you think that page is?
Yeah, right. Like I don't even think it reaches a megabyte.
It's not gonna I don't know how we're gonna get to the
I think we could put it on a floppy. I'm pretty sure.
This thing. So this is inexpensive, right? And you start to get some really cool features here. So I can choose this.
Well, and then the pricing section of the static website documentation says you can enable static website hosting free of charge. You're only billed for the blob storage that your site utilizes in operations.
And again, we could run some calculator here, but I think we would find.
Sure.
I feel comfortable in saying that those couple folders and file we stuck in blob storage is going to be cheap.
Right.
I don't think you're going to get anywhere near the $9 a month you're paying for the cheapest hosting you're going to find on some site.
And in your data center, it doesn't pay for the air conditioning, right?
Right.
So, not to mention everything else that goes into that.
Yeah. So, so the other thing you can do when you start getting into the CDN stuff, not only do you have distributed, but it takes a little while, but you can. I can create an endpoint for this thing, and this I can do while we're talking. So I'm going to call this Dev Talk Endpoint, just so we kind of know what's what, right? And you can see the origin host name, so it's pointing back to this blob.core.windows.net. That's not what you want to use for this. What you want to use is the one that's from the static website, which is funny. Now watch this. This I learned. Okay, see it says your unsaved edits will be discarded. Okay, I was like, I did this a couple times.
I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that, right? So I'm going to get this endpoint. I'm going to copy it over here, and I'm going to go back to my Azure CDN. Oh, look at that! It didn't. My stuff didn't go away.
Interesting.
Somebody put that in. That was cool, right? So I'm going to paste in the one I want, which is the web.core. So what it used to look like, let's see if I can. It used to be the blob.core. That's like the true blob path or something like that. We want this, but I've made this mistake a few times. You want to get rid of the extra stuff around the edges, right? And so we said we would do that. So I'm creating an endpoint, and I'm pointing back to this is the place where this is, and this is public, by the way. I guess you can go to this website if you want. But the endpoint is going to be even better. It's going to be AzureEdge.net, DevTalk endpoint.azureedge.net. Oh, I can't click it because I'm in Zoom. And I'll create this. Now, I don't remember. I think this is pretty quick as well, right? So now, it's going. It's doing its thing. You looking for the URL or
no? It's okay. It's assigning the endpoint now. Is that right?
It's assigning it, right? And in Azure, things take it's just like we're so spoiled. Like, oh my God, it's going to take me a minute.
Yeah.
I cannot believe it took me 30 seconds to create that storage account. Like, unacceptable.
And all you do
Rich, you got to call somebody over in Redmond. This is unacceptable. And this is great.
We uploaded some files to a storage account. Right. It's not even what we would consider a real server. it's up online and it works.
This is so we were talking about kidding around earlier about names for this episode. And we're talking about calling it like I was joking around about calling it true serverless because we didn't want to use that name because serverless has a thing, right?
Right.
But this is like beyond serverless.
Yeah.
Like this isn't even a server. Like because we know that when I create an Azure app service,
right,
there is a server. It's not my server, but there's some kind of virtual server somewhere.
You can say that about every service, that it lives on some kind of a server. There's always compute, network, and storage.
Yeah, but this feels like even less servery, or even more serverless.
Yeah. So when you think of serverless,
yeah,
the concept you're really going for is, and compare what you can do in an app service, where you can say, I need 3 instances of this web app server, or I need so many data transaction units from a SQL server. I have dials that I can spin up and down to meet my demand or meet the capacity I need for those services. Serverless just means that you don't have those dials to do it, and Azure Storage is one of those where they don't exist.
So it does fit in. Now this is actually taking.
And Azure Functions is part of that model.
Logic Apps.
Logic Apps is part of that model, and especially now that there's the consumption model in Azure Functions where you truly don't have any knobs to play with.
Right.
And we were talking earlier today about a newer acronym called the Jamstack, which very much embraces this. And Jamstack.org is out there, which says that, hey, it's a modern architecture where you use, and what does Jam stand for? JavaScript APIs and pre-rendered markup. Now, this pre-rendered markup can be what we've done, where we just took some markup right off of my GitHub repo, uploaded it, not even to a server, just to Azure Storage, and boom, it goes. You could also use, it's becoming very popular, these whole static site generation frameworks, and I don't want to call them frameworks, but like systems. Like Hugo is one of them, where the idea is that it's sort of kind of not a CMS, but it's not that. They don't, it's definitely not a CMS, because a CMS has to think when you come in and ask for something. Okay, I got to go find it and I got to render it for you. This is more like, okay, you use this and then it'll spit out the file. Jekyll
generates. It's a
DocFX
CMS, but it's a generating static.
Right. It ends up generating the markup.
And because if the content doesn't have to be, what's interesting about that when you think about some of these things, it's so much faster to render this stuff, right? If you're using static content.
Yeah.
So often we think, well, how static is my content? Does it? It only changes once a week. Great. Let's run that thing once a week.
Use it.
We'll generate it. But you know what? If you have a high performance website, even if it changes, if you're getting millions of hits, so for 15 minutes, serve that static content, and maybe you change it and you regenerate it and you load it again. Like there's ways to use that model to really push for content that you wouldn't consider static in a traditional sense.
Right. Plus, you can write JavaScript that maybe goes and gets real-time information.
From an API,
real-time information. You could use the SignalR framework. I mean, on the back end, you've got something that's that's saying here's the latest information. But
this thing's finished, so you want to switch back?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to go to. So we're on me.
Yeah,
here.
we're on you.
So you can see what I created. I created that DevTalk endpoint at Azure Edge. .azureedge.net. I think I get a clickable link right there, right?
Yeah.
So if I click that,
okay.
I'll copy it because I assume it's going to open up in a new window, but I didn't want to take a chance here, so let's just drop it over here. And there it is. Okay, and again, it's still asking me that same question. So this is already propagated out to our CDN.
Right.
Now I'm not an expert on CDN. I don't know what that means. Like how many places I'm at right now.
No, I know what you mean. I mean,
am I in like 30 places around the world right now? I don't know. But
if somebody accessing this in Asia going to the same exact IP you are, we don't know.
We don't know.
But that's the beauty of it too.
Right. I don't have to know. Right.
You don't have to know.
So I've got this. Now, to take it a step further, I don't like that URL.
Okay.
Right? Okay. I'm doing something for work here. I want it to be, dev talk, and I want it to be dev talk, or I want it to be firespotter.net, or something like that.
Yeah.
So those features are in here too. Now this gets a little harder, and I don't think we can demo this because, and it even says here, see, no custom domains to display.
Right.
We would have to have a domain set up.
Yeah.
It's going to try to validate it. So I can't just create one. It's going to say,
Right.
oh, this isn't your domain.
And in the past, I found domain name propagation can sometimes be quick, and sometimes I can go come back later this afternoon.
But let's just say this was our thing, firespotter.net. It knows. It's telling me right off the bat here that it's trying to validate it on the spot. It's looking for a CNAME record.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's doing that stuff fast. So it knows that I don't have that.
So if we had
if
a
only
record that we could use.
Do you have that?
If only we had a CNAME record. I'm not saying it'll be quick, so don't let me slow you up here.
Wow. Oh, we're gonna have to buy Firespotter.
No, we don't have to buy anything, man. I was just gonna use something else.
Oh yeah, we could use anything else, right? We could use whatever we want to use right now.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. And this is totally like we're doing this on the fly. This is a cool idea. We can add that and go to custom domain. And then while you're looking for that, let me say that the next step we wanted
CNAME record
was that because we have certificates on our stuff for work and stuff like that. Everything is HTTPS, right? We want everything to be HTTPS. You can enable HTTPS in here as well on the custom domain, but that's where things got a little slow. We're not going to be able to demo it. Now, if we get this in here, do you need this thing? DevTalkEndpoint.AzureEdge.net. Yep. So that would be cool. So you're adding a CNAME.
I'm not sure how quickly it'll propagate.
No, sometimes it's really fast. Oh, error occurred. Domain name not found. You want to put in CNAME Firespotter.
I think I might have done.
Can we share yours, Chris?
Can you share it, or do you not want to share it?
Should be okay. I don't think there's anything sensitive on here.
No. So the way it goes is the host and the value. So you're putting in my website that I use for this stuff's a little different. So you're doing a CNAME and the value. The value is going to be my thing, DevTalk Endpoint.
That's
I
what
believe.
I thought too.
Yep.
That's what I thought too. But should have looked at the.
And what is the what's the host that you're using? So you have that, or are you doing a sub? Is this a subdomain?
I didn't think you had.
You don't have to. I don't think you have to do that usually.
I didn't think you did either.
Domain name not found. So do you have? Is this are you on the right? Like I don't know. Maybe you have like a couple different places.
Yeah,
you
no, I
register
don't know.
Domains.
I don't know either.
That's
okay.
I thought
I
that
was
was the
just
right way to
curious.
do it. Yeah, that would be fun. Let me just see. Firestarter. Do you need to put in a full URL there? I don't think so. Like, does that have to be HTTP?
Nah.
Domain name.
There might be some other stuff that I'm missing too in creating a CNAME.
It's usually pretty easy to do.
Which is fine.
But I don't recall. So anyway, if we did do that, we'd be able to come over here and see that custom domain. And then you can enable HTTPS for some of this stuff with the custom domain. Now, what I found, if I was understanding correctly, is that it was going to provide a certificate for me, right? And it was going to give me a certificate for free. And it's going to do this stuff. But that took a while. It was all automatic, and it would, again, validate the custom domain name. And then it would do some stuff and propagate some things and blah, blah, blah. And it took like an hour or something. It took a while, I think. I could be misstating it. The point isn't, again, people can play around here. The point is that this feature is here, and it's not just simple stuff. Like you can do HTTPS, you can do custom domain names, you can do all kinds of stuff, and it's kind of easy. What do you got? Did you find anything in this? I wasn't sure if you're looking.
No, I'm not sure how to do it, so I figured that's okay.
Yeah,
it's something that I'll learn for another time.
Yeah.
I mean, I do see the docs for it, but I could try 2 or 3 times and not get it right each time.
Yeah.
It was saying here that you start off by mapping they have an example here. At least I believe this is the example. I don't think you actually have to call it CDN Verify. I could be wrong though. Yeah.
No, that's to do verification. There's two ways you can do this.
So this isn't.
So one way, you want to do this one, create a CNAME DNS record. You can either use a subdomain. You can do that tricky part with the subdomain, but I think it takes longer to validate. I think I remember reading about that somewhere. Like if you click the learn more thing here, maybe that's the same page you're on. There's this. I think it says at the top there's two ways to do this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like to read stuff like
no,
that
I
on
agree.
stream and stuff like
I
that.
agree.
So, point is, I think we accomplished our goal.
Yeah.
We weren't even planning on doing this
No.
extra step.
I just thought that would have been cool if it was quick.
And it's pretty easy feature. So that, you know, again, why am I doing this? Because we want to take advantage of these features that are out there for us, right? Put the right things in the right places.
Yeah.
And rethink our application designs and stuff like
so
that.
you were saying you had a site that you were putting this on a web server, a full-blown web server in your data center, and it was just a bunch of static files.
Yeah, now
Maybe
to
they were
be
images.
fair, we weren't getting a whole server for that. We were using
Okay.
another server
Yeah.
that we had.
But you're saying why not use this, which even takes the server
Right.
management out of it?
Right. Well,
It's
we were
even
planning
less-
on moving it to Azure. We were
Right.
going to move it to an app service, which is a step ahead of being in our data center, right?
Yeah.
We're moving to Azure. But then I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, why?
Right.
You don't need to do that. And I had heard about this idea that you could host these things, but I hadn't done it. So I researched it and played with it, and I had the thing, like, I had it up running in minutes. I was like, wow. I spent the next 2 days trying to work on ARM templates to make all this stuff happen. Because that would be the next thing, is that we would want to have a build for, so here's something that was interesting. So now I'm going to do the pipelines for this thing. I had it out, I prototyped it, manually. And then I said, all right, I'm going to put this in my real subscription, and I want to build pipelines for it. So my first instinct is, well, I guess I got to have a build pipeline to generate my output to go into the release pipeline.
Right. Okay.
And I'm like, wait,
What are you
what?
building?
Right, I'm
Yeah,
not building
okay.
anything. I'm not building anything. Now there could be some cases where you want to generate maybe
The site's being generated.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
or maybe you're doing CSS from like a less file. You want to like generate your anyway. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I'm like, this is cool. So I went right into the release pipeline, and in this case, the source in the release pipeline isn't the output of a build, but it is the content that's in my repo.
Okay.
Just taking the code file, the files, the
Yep.
HTML files, the JavaScript, and triggering it so it's based on a trigger. And so when I change the code, when I check it in, it triggers the release, not the build, the release, because there's no build.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's cool. That's weird. And stuff starts going through my mind like, so when someone comes to maintain this, 6 months now or something like that, they're going to be like, what's the first thing you do? Where's the build?
Yeah.
Right?
There's no build.
So it's a little bit of a learning. Like we have to sort of get used to not everything has to work exactly the same way. Right? We just have to understand the possibilities. So I went right to the release pipeline. And what I did is I created an ARM template that generated the storage account. That was generally pretty easy.
Right.
And then I used you have to do the release. There's two steps to the release pipeline. One is generate the resources, the ARMS type of stuff.
Okay.
The second part was, I got to put the files out there.
Okay.
I have to publish my website.
Yeah.
So I used a CLI task, Azure CLI, and just did a file copy.
Okay.
And it takes the files that are in my repo, or the input to my build, to my release, and boom, drops them into Azure storage, into the storage account. I'm like, that was easy. What got complicated is when I started trying to do all this stuff with the HTTPS, and I'm just running into some stuff. But learning a lot. I mean, I'm lucky. I have got one of these jobs where like I can do that. I can spend a day playing around with that, and then hopefully maybe when I figure it out, I'll show you guys.
Is the purpose of the ARM template to create the resources in the first place?
Yeah, infrastructure is code.
Sure.
Yeah.
But in general, for production, you deploy that once?
Well, it depends on what you mean by that. So when you're running a release pipeline that has ARM templates in there, ARM templates are always going to make sure that the resources are the way I want them to be. So
it's like a desired state.
It's a desired state, right? Is exactly right.
Okay.
So when someone goes in, how many times have we seen this at the office? Somebody goes and says, "Hey, the website's down. You know, the server's something's not working right on the website." What do you mean? I just deployed it today. Everything should be fine. And they go, "Where's that setting for such and such?" I go, "That's not in the release pipeline." Well, yeah, but last week I went on to the server and I made the change manually, right? And I said, "Well, don't do that, right? Don't do that because this is desired state."
Yeah.
So it's going to get us to where we want to be.
I was just wondering why. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the automation step, but I wondered, is it use once and then you don't really need it again because the site's in production? And like what you're saying is, no, that's not true. It also confirms that the site remains in that state. And the theoretical right thing to do is in the future, if you do have to make a change, you change it there. You might test it maybe to make sure you're right.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that are better about it. First of all, I can now do a code review on my infrastructure. I can say to you, "Hey, Chris, do me a favor. I already wrote this. I got the changes made to my ARM template. I'm going to check it in. Can you do a code review on this? A pull request, check it out." And you're going to look at it and go, "Yeah, I don't think you got that setting right." "Oh, no, you do. Good." Right? The other thing is, I don't want to go to production to find out it's wrong. So we do that check, and I go to my QA environment or one of my other environments, my lesser environments, and I run it there, and we know it's good. Now when I go to production, it's beautiful.
Right. Yep.
Cool.
But then there's pros and cons to this. And so, sorry, Rich, but I do feel like ARM templates are tricky. They're tricky. There's a lot of ways to change them. It's not. I like writing code. I have to admit, I like to be able to dot and get things like that. So ARM templates, I find samples and I do it. A lot of times, what I do with ARM templates is I go in and here, you want to generate an ARM template for this? Check this out. This is how hard it is. I go to my storage account.
You do what you want
I'm not looking at you.
And then generate it?
Yeah, I do it. So what we do is we have certain rules to what you're allowed to do in certain environments, right? In certain subscriptions, I should say. So let's say this is a subscription where I'm allowed to hack around, and I am in this one, right? So I can come into, where did it go? DevTalk static storage, right? I go in here, and I can go to export to template, right? And there it is. There's my template, right? So when I say it's hard, well, that's done. Now, what you have to do, I like to make it only gave me one parameter for the name of this storage account name, but there's more stuff in here that I want to parameterize, like the location, theoretically maybe the SKU, so I could change that easier. So we take a lot of parameters out, and we do things like that with it. And then adding more steps, there's just a lot.
Yeah,
to it.
Right.
But this is much better than starting from scratch, which you can do in Visual Studio, right?
Don't get me wrong. No, this is awesome. This is, to me, the general pattern. I write it. I manually create things with the portal in a lesser subscription that I'm allowed to do that.
Sure.
And I generate this thing, and I drop this into my repo, and then my release task just grabs this thing and does it. And in a lot of cases, lickety-split, piece of cake.
Yep.
When you start to get into some trickier features, some stuff can be, a little trickier. And when you get into more complicated ones, you get into more dependencies within this thing, and then you can see that this one resource, what is this? My blob service has a dependency on
ducking under your code.
No, my containers. What's that? No,
you're ducking under your code.
Sorry. Here, wait. Let's see if I can do this. I can raise it up above your head, possibly. My blob container, my blob service container has a dependency on this resource, and as you get into more dependencies in there, and more variables, it's pretty easy to screw it up. But it's well worth the effort. When I say it's a pain in the neck, I should quantify that or qualify that and say it's a pain in the neck, but it's worth that time.
Yeah.
Because it's going to work forever.
Well, you're a heck of a lot closer than you were without the generator, right?
Oh my gosh!
I wonder if when you're in Zoom It, if you could instead of trying to draw a circle with the mouse, if you could.
Oh,
Well, you can do it
I
with
know
that box where you
Nope.
hold the control down.
I think he was saying, can I do it with my
If
finger,
he's in
right? 'Cause
Zoom
it's a
it.
touch screen.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
if I had my pen, I could, because it knows the difference between dragging. And my pen's over there in my bag. But
I just
Yeah.
thought that would be interesting.
yeah, I'll bring the pen out next time. We'll try it.
No, because I have a pen for mine too, and I think one of the things I'll look at is if I zoom in and circle, can I get that feature working for the stream?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Because drawing with a mouse is.
Yeah, it's for the
Bad.
birds.
Oh, football talk says
yeah,
hi.
so we do have
How
a
long is
visit
that-
from
what time
Football
is that?
Talk.
Is
It's
that-
about 4 or 5 minutes old.
Oh, he's probably gone by now. That's
So,
Benny.
Yeah.
That's my boy checking it out.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. So, I think we covered what we wanted to talk about, which was a different way to host a website completely with just files. If your website's just files, it's just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and yeah, sure, your JavaScript could be very powerful. It could be the React framework or Angular or Vue or any popular framework. You might just be using vanilla JS, which is super awesome, and I totally love that. And go back to backend services, and talked a little bit about a new acronym, the Jamstack. Well, the API part of that could be Azure Functions, or they could be other APIs. You could build the API with ASP.NET Core. I mean, why not, right? It doesn't matter. The point is the front end is staying just pretty much statically generated, or if not generated, just code that you wrote. That was just a little project I did over a weekend, and look, it didn't really work, but I got to explore a lot of things I hadn't done before. I hadn't done like location services. I hadn't pinpointed it on a map, and that's an open source map project called Leaflet. We're not talking like a Google Maps or anything.
Mhm.
It's completely open source.
It's cool.
So it was really neat to see that go up online, and we were just an inch away from it being at any domain name we wanted, which is great.
Yeah.
So
And those are the cool projects to kind of work on that get you away from the frameworks and the NuGet packages and all of those things, and just kind of try something that's a little more on its own, scripted, and not have just to give you a different set of skills and a different set of challenges.
Right. And I've always, so I know, I don't know if it's a little weird. I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for just a static website.
Right.
Like even, I'm telling you, nobody built websites without a server side not that long ago. I don't care if you were PHP or Python or .NET. There was nobody doing it. And then, of course, the rise of JavaScript frameworks sort of swung that pendulum back, and now SPAs are very popular. But
I think developers also sort of forget.
Mhm.
Like you say, oh, I just need a website to display, like the Dev Talk Show. Like we did that. That's an ASP.NET site.
Right.
Now we're going to add features to that.
Right.
But right now it's a static page.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it could have very
developers
easily been
sort of
this.
forget. So you go into Visual Studio and you say,
Yeah.
new ASP.NET site. And hey, I'm a fan. I'm not saying we shouldn't use ASP.NET,
Right.
right? It's my career there. But you don't have
Right.
to.
Like
right?
today it's pretty static, but we know
Yeah,
that we intend to add server-side features.
Right.
So I think one of the things we definitely wanted to do with it was explore Blazor, but the day may come where we say, well, look, Blazor can be hosted. I mean,
Yes.
it's not here today, but that day will come when Blazor can be hosted in this technology, and then we'll build APIs in the back. That could be really interesting to get there.
That'd be slick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Cool.
I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping it up for this week. Do we have announcements we want to share before?
So I got one,
Okay, go ahead.
just because I think we talked about serverless,
Yeah.
and we talked about those capabilities and those functions and features that we have in Azure. So let's put
Yeah.
the shameless plug in.
Oh,
Should
yeah.
go to Tech Bash.
What's
Yes.
Tech Bash?
So Tech Bash is
Look at this guy.
this awesome I gotta take the headphones out. This awesome conference that's happening up in the Poconos, up in the Kalahari, and that's going to be November 12th
Yeah.
for the workshops, and
12th,
13th,
yep.
14th, and 15th for the actual
That's correct.
sessions. And we have there's 4 workshops that have been accepted to go forward, and you can see we got this guy here doing the serverless in Azure talk. So we're going to do a full day
Nice.
session around that, talk about some of the things we mentioned here, but go into much more detail, talk about the architectures you would use to put those in place, as well as getting hands-on and actually starting to build those things out. So a really great first day of getting your feet wet and understanding what those technologies are and what they can do. And I'm probably going to miss where this is, but
Which part are you looking for?
The part that is between now and the 23rd, which is
Early bird pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit further. And right there. It says for a limited time. Right, so
there you go.
Yeah, we've got early bird pricing in place for Tech
another
Bash.
week or so.
Yeah.
Till
So
23rd?
time to do it. You can see just about all of the speakers. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There are speakers that are not on this. We're still confirming some. If you scroll through that, you'll see a variety of people.
Oh yeah.
And there are some
list.
awesome, talented
Right.
people in this list.
Yeah. Keep, if you don't mind. So this is random.
Mhm.
The order that they come up in this thing is random, but there's all kinds of different people that hopefully some of the viewers will know, and we've got them all coming out to the Kalahari, which is a great water park, and it's a fun conference. It's so check it
It's a
out.
lot of fun.
Yep.
Ask your boss and get permission to go. It's a pretty good value. We always say you can go there for a couple days with the hotel. It's a 3-day conference plus a workshop. You're still under $1,000.
Yep.
For the so that's good money.
Yeah. And you're not traveling to New York or Washington, which is where a lot of those bigger conferences are.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
don't have to get
it's
on
in your backyard.
Not going to Vegas for this one. If you're
Exactly.
Now, look, interestingly we do get people coming from around. We got a registration the other day, and I noticed some of them. And somebody from Texas. I was like, wow, that's cool.
Nice.
So like people do travel for it.
Yeah.
But our core audience is sort of in the area of like New
Northeast.
York,
Yeah.
New
Mid-Atlantic,
Jersey.
maybe.
Yeah. We get a lot of people from Maryland coming.
Mhm.
A lot of Pennsylvania though, clearly.
Ohio.
So, yeah.
Maybe.
I think we had a couple. I don't know. I don't know if that's like a hot spot. But
Okay.
but I mean, it's reasonable to come from Ohio.
Sure.
It's reasonable to
Absolutely.
come from Southern New York State. I think if you live like even if you're in like or in all if you're in like even Syracuse, like it's into Northeast Pennsylvania, it's not that bad.
No.
So there's a lot of people within range of it. It should be a fun event, and we're psyched that you're coming out to do that workshop. I know it's going to be a good one. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited too. This will be fun.
Yeah. So last thing, I think we'll wrap it up with we'll go back to our what we're watching segment, and I want to do something a little. It's only slightly technology today.
Yeah.
Did either of you see the movie Catch Me If You Can?
I love that
Yep.
movie.
Okay, so that movie was it's actually, believe it or not, the movie's already over 15 years old, and it was Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was chasing Leonardo DiCaprio's character all over. I guess I don't know if it was the country or the world, but it's it was a biopic about the life of I know I'm going to get this name wrong, Frank Abagnale, who had basically lived his life as a con, and what he was famous for in the movie was the airline pilot part, where he masqueraded as a pilot for major airlines. Maybe it was just Pan Am, I don't know. He talks about it in the talk. Well, he spoke at Google. Google is well known for hosting talks where they have folks. They've had Linus Torvalds there, and then of course they've had Frank. They've had plenty of other people, and they really just have these informative talks. And I remember watching this talk a little while back. I think it's really interesting. He spends the first 20 to 30 minutes or so himself just talking about his life. And if we can bring it up here, there's a little clip, just a tiny clip that I thought is really relevant to what we talk about with technology. It's an hour long, and after he just spoke kind of about what he did and how he got away with a lot of things, and why to him it was so easy and simple and natural in a way. He got an interesting question, which I think makes a lot of sense, that someone from a younger generation would immediately raise their hand and say to Frank, like, they would basically ask this question in the essence, and I don't know. Let me make sure I've got audio on. Oh, well, maybe I won't do that. All right, because otherwise it's going to feedback my own.
What if you
talking.
put the volume down?
It's not about that. It's that the feedback from the other. Let me hold on a second. Let me.
What's your output?
The output is
just make sure it's the HDMI.
Yeah, you just turn your volume down so you don't hear it.
That's
right?
not it. There's more to it than that.
There's more to it than that.
Yeah, I got to make sure that nothing else is playing the sound.
Oh, well, that's another problem. Yeah.
Okay, so this should be good.
Let's bring you back.
Here we go. Let's see how this sounds here.
Howdy. They always want to be confident.
So he's going to get a question right here from the audience. And I thought it was really relevant.
Obviously, technology has evolved quite a bit since you were going around and things like that. Would somebody be able to accomplish something similar today, even with all
And
of
everybody
the
laughs,
technical
right?
advances?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot.
I wasn't
Actually,
sure what the laugh meant.
Sorry to say, but 4,000 times easier today than when I did it.
So I thought that was interesting, and he explains that.
Yeah.
He talks about why it's easier. And the laugh, I can't say I know for sure if the laugh was people saying, oh, of course it's a lot easier, or were they even going like, oh gosh, you couldn't get away with pretending you were a doctor or cashing phony checks today.
Right.
And he goes to talk about how like, no. So the social engineering aspect, the technology at our fingertips, some of the technology we're using here in this room, the kind of amazing scanning, printing, and high definition images that we can take with devices in our pockets.
I mean, I guess I feel like I need to come clean. I'm not a software developer.
Yeah.
I've been just pretending. Yeah, I actually, it seemed like a really cool idea to pretend to be a software developer. Right. So I wrote up a fake documentation and I faked my resume.
Right. You put it in PDF, and next thing you know, you're running.
I mean, that's kind of what he did, right?
Right.
Yeah. But he talks about how it is easier today. This is a fun video to watch.
Yeah.
Because the examples he talks about is like, how hard was it for him to do those things?
It was actually more marvelous to say, wow, how did he get away with it then? Because then he specifically goes into an example of how, here's what I had to do to pass a check, and this is how easy it would be to get away with it today. And you feel that realization coming over the audience of like, oh my gosh, because our lives are out there, information's out there. And that's just one section of it. It's fascinating. Yep. So I thought that was something to share. And we're going to keep taking a look. I like to look for what am I watching on YouTube, maybe what are we reading about, and it just might be of interest to you. So let us know what you think about that. We'll make sure we put the link to that video down on the YouTube replay down in the comments.
Yeah.
So anything else from anybody, or say that's our show?
I think it's getting there. It's time to go, right? I don't know, Rich, what do you got? I could talk for hours. You don't ask me what else you got.
Put the quarter in.
Well, what we got is next week, right? And so at this point, I think we're still figuring out whether it will be Wednesday or Thursday next week.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to settle into our schedule soon. Some real life schedules are being decided on right now.
Hit the like button.
Yeah.
And subscribe. If you're watching this, hit the like button and subscribe. We should be saying that.
Yeah.
Throughout the show.
Hit the like button. You should comment and tell us what you think. What did you like? What else do you want us to talk about? And what did you think about some of the stuff we shared tonight? Did you try it yourself? Did you watch the video with Frank? And what are you trying? Are you going to go live with .NET Core Preview 8 or any .NET Core Preview as we get closer to September and .NET Conf? Are you speaking at .NET Conf? Are you excited about .NET Conf? Let us know.
Are you excited about Tech Bash? You going to Tech Bash?
Excited
about
Tech
Bash.
Those? We've got plenty of shows from now to then to drum up that. Right?
I'm not wearing my shirt. Usually it says it right across my chest, Tech Bash. I have to get you guys shirts so we can all.
So everybody watching tonight, thank you for watching tonight. And if you are watching us from the future, thank you for coming back in time and joining us on the Dev Talk Show. We'll be here next time. And so for Rich from behind the camera and Andy right next to me, I'm Chris Gomez. And thank you again for joining us on the Dev Talk Show.
Good night.